Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before we get into it with our guest here today, well, first of all, everyone who's a longtime listener should recognize our guest. We have Jaclyn Baker back on the podcast again. It's been a little over a year since we last had her on, and geez, what a year it's been since the last time we talked. I mean, the last time we talked to you, you were having problems with your prep because of COVID and everything like that, and now hopefully it's a little bit easier now, and we can just, she's on here to give us an update on what she's been up to, and I mean, she just got done with the Arnold where she placed third in just an absolutely stacked class. And yeah, I'm just excited to hear all her stories about what she's been up to since then. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Jaclyn, thank you so much for coming back on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be back and speak with you.
Well, what is the weather like in New York now? Because the last time I talked to you, it was January of last year. So I hope that it's a little bit warmer than it was that time last year.
Yeah, actually, today was really beautiful. It's like in the high 50s, low 60s, sunny. But the weather for March is all over the place. It'll be cool in the morning, sunny in the afternoon, rain or snow the next day. It kind of wants to be spring, but it's not quite spring yet. But I'll take it over the winter any day.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know I'm jinxing myself by saying that it's 40 degrees here in Minnesota because, like, next week we'll probably get like a big snowstorm or something. That's how it always happens like that. I mean, it always tricks you into thinking that things are going to be better, and then all of a sudden, whoop, you're have to be indoors for the next 2 weeks because you got a foot of snow on the ground. So I'm not going to count my chickens just yet. But I mean, it's been a year since we talked. Obviously, a lot's been going on. What has this last year been like for you?
Last year has been exciting. A lot of hard work, a lot of training. With Olympia and Arnold being so close together in 2021, and then them bringing the Arnold back to March for 2022. I was kind of in prep for most of the year. So it's been great. Just head down, grinding, keep going. Um, Placed fifth at Olympia, fourth at Arnold's in 2021, and then third at Arnold's this year. And then I did Boston Pro where I placed second. So it's been a really great year. A lot of learning, a lot of fun, and I'm very fortunate to be doing what I'm doing and loving it.
So you're saying you're going to get first at your next show, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
Slowly climbing up there. But what was that like going on such an extended prep? Because yeah, the Arnold's, the way that they made it, they put it back to its original date. I mean, it's like you did not have, if any, really free time to really
I
sort of
took about
build and
7 weeks of what I would call an improvement season, and my coach and I gave myself a little bit more leeway with food and things. But I always like to keep it on the cleaner side anyway, so it wasn't that bad. Or I think it almost worked for me to go straight into another show. Although by the end of Arnold prep, I was definitely exhausted, and my body was like, "Okay, we're done." But I think once you're in it and you're doing it, you just you just have a one track mind. I didn't realize till about, I think it was like 6 weeks out, it hit me hard, and my body was like, "Yeah, we're done," and my brain was like, "Well, we have 6 weeks left." So it was good, but it was tough.
how did you mix things up like with your training and your nutrition? Because you probably haven't done preps this long or had this much of a sustained amount where like you really had to tone things in.
Yeah, I leave that all to my coach. Chino is his name. He's on Instagram as Detail Bodybuilding. He kind of calls me the robot. Whatever he says, I do. I question it, so I learn, but I don't question it in as a questioning him. He's really learned my physique and what works for me, and is able to guide me in the best way possible so that I'm not deteriorating or losing muscle, or not eating foods that I don't enjoy. So all my foods I enjoy. We keep my protein pretty high, I guess I would say for me. Carbs are moderate, fats are low, and that seems to work right now. And then I check in with him anywhere from usually minimum twice a week. And when we get closer to a show, it's every day. It could be midday. He could say, "Throw your suit on now. I need to see pictures of you." And he'll change things that day if he needs to. So he's really on top of it as far as my diet and cardio go, my training, and I just follow suit.
Has your training been a lot easier now that there haven't been maybe as much restrictions because of COVID sort of loosening up a little bit? Has it been a little
Oh
bit of
yeah,
a
yeah.
godsend for you?
Yeah, being back in the gym has been really nice. Not having to wear a mask in the gym has been really nice. That was really tough. I kind of look back at 2020 like I can't believe I did that. Um, but I that just shows you as a testament to human beings can do whatever they want as long as they put their mind to it. So um, yeah, it's been much nicer. Yes.
What were these holidays, last past holidays, like for you now that you basically had to be in? You had to be in your contest prep for almost the whole entire time.
Yeah, it's funny. Couple things. I am Jewish, so I celebrate Hanukkah. So it's not as big of a feasting holiday as like
You
a
still got to
Christmas.
deal with Thanksgiving.
It's so funny. I don't know why, but I do not, and everyone makes fun of me. I don't like Thanksgiving Day food. I know. It's very, I don't like mashed potatoes. I don't like gravy. I don't like turkey. So Thanksgiving doesn't bother me. If it was like burgers and, or like chicken parm or, birthday cake, those kind of things get me. Not being able to celebrate my birthday was harder than the holidays. Yeah.
So, what do you traditionally do for Hanukkah? Because I don't have that much experience with that myself when it comes to food.
The traditional like foods and treats for Hanukkah are latkes, with potato latke, which is like basically a potato pancake. That's one of the things. There's, I guess that would be the most common like treat for Hanukkah. And we celebrate with the family. But I did go to my family's in Florida for the holidays and spent some time there. And Thanksgiving, what did I do? I think I went to my sister's. I can't even remember in Jersey. But yeah, the food that doesn't bother me so much.
Thanksgiving was just a blur for me. I don't even want to get into it. You just look back and then you just look at the scale and you're like, okay, I got to do a little bit more cardio now to sort of get rid of this. But
That Thanksgiving get me, but that's all.
yeah, and absolutely. And I mean, competing like last year at the Olympia and the Arnold, what was that experience like? Because having them just so close back to back, did that change up your mindset at all when it came to the competitions themselves?
Um, well, there were a couple of things that were tough, I think, as far as our division. For the routine, I couldn't decide what to do. A lot of the women keep their same routine throughout the whole year. Like they'll do the same one at Arnold's that they do at Olympia, back when Olympia was in September and Arnold's was in March. And no judgment or anything. I just always liked to bring a new routine to Olympia. So I really couldn't decide up until the week of if I was going to do my new routine or a different routine. So that was tricky. So I ended up doing two different routines 2 weeks apart, which I think I was the only person who did that. Um, and then with training and dieting, I had never done a show so close together like that. So that was interesting for me. Um, 2 weeks was tough. It was definitely, managing the rebounds, managing, keeping away from getting any injuries in the 2 week span and just staying focused. But I didn't mind it. It was definitely tough. Mental game. The whole thing's a mental game.
How hard was it realizing that, like, hey, I can't go and pig out now after a show for once now?
Well, my coach gave me one free meal
Oh
that
wow.
night. Yeah, so I got a meal that night, basically to refeed me into the next two shows. So that was fine. And we just monitor like my sodium and water to try to make sure that we're on top of it, so I don't, really balloon up. And um, he's got his eye on me. We have the meal together, so he let me eat whatever I wanted, and then that next morning we wake up and train and do my cardio and go right back to my peak week meals.
What was the main feedback that you got from last year's Arnold and Olympia, and has that changed for this year's Arnold that you just competed at?
It's funny. The feedback I mostly get is positive. Um, it's you've come back better and stronger every show. Your routines have been better. Your physique has been better. Keep coming back. Keep showing up. So I think it was pretty similar from Olympia and Arnold's last year to this year. Yeah, I've had really positive feedback as far as my improvements and my physique, and then my routines. They seem to be liking them better and better. So a lot of positive feedback, which I'm very, very happy about.
Which I mean, until I talked to a few more fitness competitors, because I've only had like a dozen or so of them on, I didn't realize just how important that routine was in your score. How it's
Yeah,
like 2/3 of it, and I'm just like, wow. So how do you come up with those routines? Because I mean, when it accounts for that much of a score, I mean, you could be the most insane person when it comes to physique wise ever. But I mean, like if you don't have that proper routine, that's just good luck. Yeah, really.
yeah. Actually, it's a team effort. So I have my coach Chino, and then I have a choreographer. His name is Brady, and we all converse along with one of my sisters. I have two sisters. My older sister lives here, and she's a dancer as well. So we all talk about music, talk about ideas, costumes, and then we come together and work together. I work with Brady in the studio. We send videos to Chino, and then my sister will come along and kind of like tweak things. So it's kind of a bouncing around with a lot of different brains, which works really well. And then I usually am like, no, I don't like that, or I do like that. I'm kind of like in the background, and I let them design and create, and I kind of am just like, no, or yeah, that's totally cool. I get that. So I don't have really that creative bone in my body. I'm more creative when I'm on stage, but I'm not one of those creative people, so I let them take the reins.
When it comes to the costumes, do they have certain requirements of like how big or how small it has to be? Because I can imagine like they're not gonna have someone walk out like dressed up as a nun, basically. Then like just have it. Like, is there anything like? Do they require stuff for costume? Or is it just basically whatever you want?
It's funny, there's no requirements for costumes. Costumes are taken into account, whether they match your routine or they look good on your physique, or they look good on you with your skin tone on stage. But there's no requirements. Um, it is a physique competition, so I imagine you want to show your physique off. It's funny, for this Arnold, I was actually more covered up than I've ever been, with my midriff not showing. But it fit my routine, and I really liked it, and I think it came across well. I didn't get any bad feedback from it. Um, so there's no real requirements.
Which I mean, I had no idea about that and really until I started, like I said, like I started talking to more people where I was like, just how much minuscule things go into the routine part of it, because I'm just so used to
Yeah.
talking to people about posing and everything like that. And it's like, well, the routines, that's a whole entire different ball game. But when it comes to just, preparing for each individual Arnold, and I mean, your routines have to be so significantly different, I would think, as you compete in more and more shows. Do you sometimes find that even with the people that you do work with, that it's hard to come up with new ideas? Because like if you're in this sport for a long time, it's got to be hard eventually to find like, okay, we got to find something that I haven't done before.
I think because of the people I work with, no.
Okay.
I think if it was me personally trying to do it by
Oh,
myself,
for me, after like two or three, I'd be like, yeah, I can't. I don't have any more
yeah.
ideas.
I mean, you do use the same skills, so it's creating the routine and designing the skills in different order or different ways. And we're always trying to make things different, or throw in new skills, or do something in a different way so that it looks different than what I did last time. Um, but I don't find it that hard to make it fresh. I think all of my routines have been very unique and different, and but still staying true to who I am as a performer and a person.
And a question that I didn't ask you the last time I had you on, I've just started asking it to people that I've had on is, if someone, I bet there's been people that have said this though too. It's like, why do you do this? Like, why do you put yourself through this? Why do you torture yourself like this? What is your response to that? Because I've found that answer now to be so fascinating. Of like, because so many people don't know that much about this sport. So then when they just see all the hard work that you put into it, they're just like, why would you do that to yourself to just go up on that stage? But how do you like to respond to that if you've ever heard that?
Well, I think first of all, I don't think it's torture. I think I get to compete. I
Oh,
think I
I'm
have
saying for the general person, they view it as torture because they're like, oh, she has to eat just that, and then she can't do any.
right. So
She
I
can't go
think
out and have Dairy Queen. Yeah, yeah.
I actually flip that, and I say I get to eat that. I have the ability to do this. Um, I think I'm blessed and fortunate to be able to enjoy it as well. What drives me is seeing how much further I can push myself. I really feel like it's amazing when you get to a point, like I was saying, that 6 weeks out, I said, "There's no way I'm going to finish this," and somehow, some way, 6 weeks later, I'm on stage and I feel great. And then I went right back into another show a week later, so 7 weeks really. Seeing what I can physically do with my body and how I can transform and how I have transformed over the years is fascinating to me and drives me more and more. Um, Inspiring others really inspires me to be better and do better and continue on. It's amazing how many people I've touched just by my own journey and not realizing it, just by sharing on social media or people seeing me and meeting me. So it's humbling to see that. And I think all of those things together drive me. And then just being competitive by nature.
That is the big key right there. And like you mentioned, those 6 weeks when you're just saying, like, I don't know if I can do this. Are you one of those people where it's very quick for you to all of a sudden just like switch your mindset and just be like, no, we're doing this, we're continuing it? Or you're someone like me where even as I would be driving to the gym, I'd be like, okay, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't. Literally, as soon as I start to work out, then I might change my mind a little
No,
bit.
no, I'm a mind over matter person, so I definitely flip that right away. And I'm like, you can do it. You've got, and I do. I say take it minute by minute, day by day. All you have to do is get to the next meal. You've got to get to the next workout. You've got to get to, whatever it is that I have to get to. I take it and I check it off, and I'm like, okay, now move forward. And again, I do have a great team behind me that's rooting me on and cheering me on. To be like, I remember calling my friend and it was like 70 degrees out one day and people were like drinking on the street in the city. The city gets like so happy. I forget when this was, which prep, it wasn't recently. And I said, why am I doing this? It's like beautiful, it's 70 degrees, I should be having brunch. And she said, I think I just finished fourth at Olympia. This is like 2019. She said, because being fourth in the world is so much cooler than a 70-degree day. And I was like, okay. So I have people behind me that are rooting for me and pushing me and reminding me of how much I've accomplished and how much more I can accomplish.
What do you think has been one body part that you've improved the most over this last year?
My legs. My legs were lacking. I like to say I dancer legs. Very hypermobile. I couldn't connect with my hamstrings very hard. I also had a ton of lower body injuries from dance and then from bodybuilding. So we were always having to work around those injuries. Still working around them, but my coach has done a really great job at finding exercises we can do that don't elicit more pain. And I was able to grow my legs a lot more, and then get them lean enough where I may show off what I've put on. So definitely my legs.
Do your legs affect how you do your routines at all, or have you just found ways around that as well?
That definitely affects it. Yeah, it definitely affects it. I am not one of those women that practice my routine nonstop every day for hours and hours and hours. My body won't withstand that. I also am a little bit on the upper side of some of the women that have been competing as far as age goes. So my body is beaten up, it's broken. Not that the younger women don't have injuries, but I also feel like with my dance background, I trust my body and it knows what it's doing. So I don't have to repetitively grind things into the ground. So I work around and work smart. Working smarter for me has always been key.
What's one thing that you enjoy about being an older competitor in the sport, and what's one thing that you don't enjoy about being an older competitor in the sport?
The injuries and the pain, and I wish I was a little bit younger and could go back and have less injuries for sure, for sure. And then I think being a little bit older, I have a different view on everything, and I can kind of sit back and watch and appreciate. I think when you're in your late 30s, you kind of learn to appreciate moments instead of getting frazzled in the drama and the whatever. I just kind of sit on the sidelines and watch and observe and enjoy. So I think those are two things.
Yeah, at 27, I started to see that when I went back to my old college to go watch a hockey game and saw the drama that all these college kids are in and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It's just like, okay, yeah, I'm glad I'm out of that now. And I don't have to worry about that. So, yeah, I understand a little bit what you're saying with that. But, I mean, when it comes to just going on that stage and you're at the Arnold and you're at the Olympia, I mean, the Super Bowls of bodybuilding really. Do you feel that your nerves are much less now that you've done this so many times than they were in the beginning, or is it still something where you just have to pinch yourself every time before you go on stage?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer if you don't have nerves when you're doing something, you shouldn't be doing it. I still get nerves. I remember lying in bed, I think it was a week before Arnold this year, and I was going over my routine in my head, and my adrenaline ran up, my heart rate was pumping just as if I was on stage. I could feel like the audience behind me and my nerves, my adrenaline. So it's still the same as it was when I was a kid dancing. And I do feel like if you don't have that, there's something missing, and maybe you should think about doing something else.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And this is also a sport that's always ever evolving. We didn't talk about this last time, but since you started in the sport to where you're at now, what have been some of the biggest changes that you've seen just in the fitness category itself? Because just bodybuilding as a whole, I mean, it evolves every single year, but there have been massive changes, even if you look at the last 5 years of this sport.
Yeah, I think because our division is twofold, I think the answer is twofold. The routines have changed dramatically. The skills are much harder. The women are coming with creative ideas and costumes. I think there's a wider variety of routines. You know, we have myself and a couple of the other people who are former dancers, where you have some women who are former cheerleaders, some that are former gymnasts. So there's different variety. I think the physiques have leveled up a lot. I think our division has become bigger and leaner than it was back, 5 years ago. Um, and I would say, yeah, I would say overall it's just evolved just like every other category. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, and they, like every year it seems to change up just a little bit, so it always keeps you on your toes, which is one thing that I like. But
Yeah.
one thing that I would struggle with the most if I ever compete is the fact that with social media you can see how your fellow competitors are going to be looking, mainly a lot of times before the competitions. Have you ever fell into that rabbit hole where you're just like looking at some of the other competitors and being like, oh my god, they're coming in looking like this or that? Or is it one of those things where you just completely sort of in the last few weeks just shut off social media a little bit and just be like, okay, I'm just going to focus on me?
I don't shut off social media. Um, I do focus on myself and I don't get caught up in what others are doing. To me, I always say don't trust Instagram. There's a lot of, angles and things that you can do. And the second people show up, whatever happens during peak week is how they're going to look on stage. And I also am a firm believer, like, there's nothing I can do with my physique that's going to be able to compete against someone else's physique unless I'm doing what's best for me. So just because someone's coming in, all of a sudden 2 weeks out, they look super lean, doesn't mean that I should change what I'm doing. Um, and to be honest, I again go back to that robot mode, and whatever my coach says, I do. And he knows how to bring me in the best I can be, and that's all I need. I don't need another eye. And comparing myself to the other women, yes, we're compared on stage, but getting caught up and obsessing over that, I don't think will be a positive thing. Um, but I wouldn't say I go off of social media and don't pay attention. I see, but it doesn't affect me like that.
It's human nature to always just, like do that in the sea. But yeah, that's the one thing where I'm glad, yeah, that I don't have to worry about that, because I would be, yeah, that one person who'd be like, oh my god, they're looking. I would literally just have to unfollow everyone and just like it would, yeah. Again, lucky why I don't do this sport. But now that you're done with the Boston Pro, and are you giving yourself a little bit of time to recuperate now, or what are your current plans looking like right now?
Yeah, so right now it's not looking like I'll do any shows until Olympia. If I do a show, it'll be closer to Olympia, so maybe like something in November. But right now, I don't think. I think I'll have a really long off season, let my body heal, recover, rest a little bit, and then go into a long prep for Olympia.
What is the one food that you did have after the Boston Pro and you realize you're going to have a little bit more of a break now?
After Boston,
Yeah.
like a fun food.
Yeah.
What did I have? Oh, I actually got two meals that day. Or that night and day. I like to do like order all the appetizers and share. So I had nachos, burgers, boneless buffalo wings, some milkshake thing, and then the next morning I went to brunch with my family and had pancakes and breakfast burrito. Trying to think what else we had. Just a bunch of random things. But yeah.
No, I would honestly, yeah, like I said, I would honestly just rent out a place for like $1,000 and just be like, you're feeding me until I die, puke, pass out, or
I
whatever.
to learn my limits and remember that food will always be there and eat what I want and indulge and overindulge, but not too far. So right now I get one free meal a week, so that helps. Um, and depending on the week, I'll get a second one.
Yeah, that food, I mean, don't even get me started on that. And I love to talk. I mean, we talked about post show blues last time, but I like to talk a little bit more about body dysmorphia now, because I'm sorry, that is the funniest. being a non-competitor, that's the funniest thing for me, that some of these competitors that I have on think that they are not big enough, think that they are not good enough, and I just want to message them and be like, A, you're an idiot, and two, just look in the damn mirror and you're still better than 99.99 repeating percent of the public. But I get where they're coming from, because obviously when you're competing against other people that are also in that demographic too, it's, you have to compare yourself. But it's like, I just found that so fascinating. When before I started this podcast and really got into this lifestyle, I would have guessed that these people would be the least body dysmorphic people out of them all, just because they have the great bodies. But nope, found out that it's almost the exact opposite. So how do you deal with that stuff personally? Because I'm gonna be honest, if I was one of your friends and you messaged me and you're being like, do I look fat, do I look heavy today, I'd be like, stop talking to me, like, I'll just go
Well,
look in the damn mirror.
yeah, I don't think I think I'm very in tune with my body and how I look. That doesn't mean that I don't forget. Sometimes my friend took a picture of me the other day, and she sent it to me. I was like, I kind of forget sometimes what I look like. Because this little boy walked by and he was like kind of looking at me. Oh, I forgot that my arms are very muscular. It's not really the quote unquote norm. I think the body dysmorphic comes with it. I think I was used to it from the dance world also, so I was knowledgeable about it. As far as it getting in the way with my training or anything like that, or my friendships, I don't I don't ever like say, "Oh, I'm so fat," or "Oh, I'm not lean enough," or anything like that. When it comes to bodybuilding and my training, again, I leave it all to my coach, and he's on top of me as far as like, okay, we're putting on too much body fat. Okay, we're not leaning out fast enough, or whatever it is that's happening. And then I really try hard to look at my physique and say positive things, and remember that water retention is water retention, and fat is fat, and the way you eat is the way you look. So if I decide I want to eat crap for 3 weeks straight, I'm going to look the way I'm going to look. I think a lot of times people don't want to be honest with what they're doing and what the results and the consequences are, and so then they're upset about it and they kind of beat themselves up. On the flip side, I do think what you're probably alluding to is like when you're really lean and you don't think you're lean enough. I think that's just hard, and that's because you're competitive and you're trying to be better. And this is an extreme sport, and usually extreme personalities enter an extreme sport.
I have
So
found that to be the case, yes.
it's hard to find the balance and to really see it with clear eyes. But again, that goes back to my team and um, the amount of people that I have behind me rooting for me and saying positive things, and um, not just like fake positive things. Like they're pretty honest. So
What has this whole mental journey been like for you, going from that dancer background where you had to have a specific body type to now the bodybuilding background where they're night and day, basically?
they are night and day in many ways. I a lot of times was judged for my physique in dancing in a negative way, especially in my late teens, early 20s. I went through puberty really late, didn't drink till I was 21 in college. So the combination of those two things together, I was always a very small person. But when you're dancing, you're judged for, can you wear a half top? Or are your legs like jiggling on stage? Or is it aesthetically pleasing to look at you in a unitard on stage, just like a one piece? So those are things that you're weighed also, which I always weighed a lot for my height. So there were certain stigmas with dance that are very old school. And then when I transitioned into bodybuilding, I realized how positive the light was on muscles or strong legs or not being skinny. Like how skinny was a bad thing in bodybuilding, and skinny is a great thing in dance. So I really enjoy it, and I think it's been a really positive journey for me to switch from dance to bodybuilding. Um, but I owe most of my discipline and everything to my dance life, so I wouldn't say that that was negative at all.
Do you ever look back on old photos from like your early 20s and just be like, how did I do this?
I look back and I'm like, oh. And like I said, I was always very petite. I'm not a big person. I'm only 5'1.5", and yes, the half matters. So my weight was probably within the same weight range. My body composition was just very different. Um, but yeah, I always joke with my friends because when I was in college, we used all the disposable cameras. and there's no selfie camera, so every picture is like us like this, and I have like all these chins. I'm like, could no one have told me that I have 3 chins in every picture we took? So
I have that same problem as well, where no matter what, I
yeah,
could be down to 1% body fat and I'm still getting a double chin regardless. And
yeah.
a beard does help. I will tell everyone that, but
Excellent. Learn from that.
yeah, yeah. So there is that, at least. But I mean, having this off season now and being able to finally relax and stuff, what is one area that you are going to focus on now? Are you still going to focus on growing legs more? Is there any other body parts where you're specifically going to be working for?
Um, a little bit more on my legs, yes. A little bit more front delts, a little bit more mid back, just some more detailing work. And then we're really going to focus on getting stronger functionally for more of the routine aspect of it. So just touching up a couple of those areas on my physique that need to come out a little bit more, and then function, and then more functional work.
Which that's always good to have, especially with these routines. And
Yeah.
how do you, I mean, obviously you probably talk to other bodybuilders that don't do fitness or just do other categories. How do you think your training differs for them? Because like you said, you need to be a little bit more of a functional strong, because these physique competitors or bikini competitors, they're not doing, like one arm push-ups on stage or like doing all these moves that like you have to do in fitness.
Yeah, I think some of them do and some of them don't. I believe in cross training. I believe that you should be able to train like a bodybuilder but still be functional and still be able to stretch, and so we train more with like corrective exercise in mind, and functional. So my training is very bodybuilder-esque as far as like my splits and everything, but then we'll throw in some more corrective exercise to keep shoulder stability, more core exercises besides just like a plank or crunches, so that I'm strong for push-ups or any of my jumps.
Have you found, because that the one thing that I struggle with the most was flexibility after I started putting on muscle, because I'm 6'3", so I'm that lanky where it's like my lanky was what benefited me before, but then when you actually had size to it, it does not. Did your flexibility suffer at all, and did you sort of have to find ways on how to sort of counteract the fact that, like, yeah, with more muscle I might not be able to be as bendy as I was before doing some of these routines?
So yes and no. I think as I've aged, my flexibility has gotten worse. And putting on muscle, I've always been adamant about trying to keep a certain amount of flexibility. So I always stretch. My joints are very hypermobile. So to be honest, putting on a little bit of muscle was very good for me to keep my joints more stable. So I found a good balance.
That, and I mean, honestly, that is good for you, because for me, again, this is like reason 9,000 why this would never work out for me. This is why I'm on the sidelines interviewing people as opposed to actually doing it myself, everyone. But like you did mention, like a little boy noticed your arms and stuff like that out in public. We talked about this a little bit last time, but I mean, how are you dealing with that? I mean, like if you're dressed the way you are right now and you walk out in public, I mean, it's like you're gonna get attention. Is it just easier for you to accept that now, or is it still something that you're just like, wow, this is kind of crazy?
Well, it's funny. I'm a very observant person, probably too observant sometimes. Like I just notice my surroundings all the time. I've been like that since I was a kid. So I can always see people looking at me or pointing, or it's just in my nature to pay attention to my surroundings. I would say it bothers me less, and I more just smile. I don't really get many negative comments. It's more just stares. I mean, I don't know why people stare. Like I don't know that that's like something we're taught as kids. I feel like that we're not supposed to do that, but I think it's just abnormal for someone to see a woman walking around like myself. So it's natural to stare. Um,
I'm just gonna say, if I saw like a guy with 3 arms or 3 legs, I'm gonna stare. Sorry.
right. I mean, I don't know. I was out at a bar
No,
last
no,
night.
no, no. I know. I get what you're saying. Where it's like, yeah, I was also taught on the thing where it's like, yeah, you're gonna get smacked on the wrist if you stare at someone for too. It's like that's rude. Don't do that. But yeah, so I get what you're saying with that.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't bother me. Like I chalk it up, and I'm like, okay. I mean, if they want to stare at me, that's cool. I take it more as like a positive when I say, oh, they're really noticing that I work hard, or they're noticing, that my arms look good to them, or maybe they don't like them, but in my head, they think they look good.
That's the way that you got to think too. And I mean, How did your cardio deal with being on this extended prep? Because I mean, did you mix things up at all? Well, please tell me that you did at least, because I would feel bad if you're like, no, I just did the same thing for a longer period of time now.
Well, I call myself the crazy stair lady because I did the stairs in my apartment building, which is 5 floors. So I do that usually for fasted, depending on the day and depending what my prep was. I had an ankle injury this year, twice, the same ankle. So I actually had to do a bike, which I never do, which I absolutely did not like. Um, so I did that, and then we did the treadmill. So I usually switch it up. Usually stairs and treadmill are my go-tos. And what we do with my cardio is we start at a low pace, low incline, and depending on my prep, we increase the incline before increasing time, and then we increase time. So it kind of changes it up a little bit.
So two ankle injuries on the same ankle. So did you hurt it, then you thought you fixed it, and then you re-injured it, or was it just a freak accident twice?
It was never fully healed,
Oh, okay.
and I rolled it again. Yeah. And then I had a third injury on that same foot about, I don't know, 3 months after that. So it was a rough go. Yeah. So we had to get creative.
How are you still walking? I mean, I just that's just the drive of bodybuilding that just drives me through the moon with just like how is this even possible? Like this is just but hey, yeah, you got to pull through with it. And was your sleep a little bit more different than it was last time too, dealing with, this extended prep because like your sleep schedule does get bipolar as you get closer to a show.
My sleep is pretty good, I have to say. Knock on something, I'm a very good sleeper. I do wake up a lot to go to the bathroom, which is annoying. But I usually fall right back asleep. Um, and I am very regimented about my sleep. I put my phone away around 9 o'clock. Phone goes in my kitchen. I watch about another 30 minutes of TV, and then I get in bed around 9:30, 9:45. Um, so I've got a good schedule with my sleep. And I did implement naps this prep, which really helped because I'm up early. So I'm usually up around 4 or 5. So I was able to schedule like a 20, 30-minute nap post workout. So I usually do my cardio, have a couple meals, couple clients, then I go train, then I would come home, eat, and I would have about an hour break. And I would fall asleep for about 20, 30 minutes, and that seemed to really help me. And my body was able to recover well.
Lucky I've never been able to nap. I've taken probably about a dozen naps in my entire life. And
I'm a good napper. I'm one of those like deep sleep nappers. So
well, I just hate it because you wake up and you don't know what time it is and you're kind of like
yeah,
freaked out and you're like, what's been going on? And then you realize you've only been asleep for like an hour and you're just like, okay,
that
what?
is true. That is true.
Yeah.
That's what happened. And then you like spaz out and you're running everywhere.
Yeah. I'm like, did I just sleep until tomorrow? And then you look and you're like, oh, the movie that I started when I took this nap is still playing. So, I'm good. So, but yeah, that like 60 seconds of just blind confusion where you're just like, I don't know what's going on now. So, yeah,
I do agree with you. I don't like that either.
I wish that was not the case too, but we can see you're just all veins, and I'm one person where I could also like be at 1% body fat, and I just won't have veins. It just never happened to me. I don't know why it is. Are you someone who really close into your prep you start getting like as veiny as you are? Or is it someone, or are you someone where it takes more time for them to really show, or where do you fall on that?
Uh, I stay within a good body fat percentage all year round. I usually try to keep it, like I said, at a healthy range, not too lean. But I usually do have, bicep, arm days, never on my legs off season or my stomach, but that comes in probably, depends, 6 weeks. My legs definitely a little bit later in the game.
I've only had a vein on my shoulder, really. That's about it. Like right around here. That's the only one. So,
Yeah, I think the lower your body fat is definitely when they start to show more.
absolutely. Yep. So I guess I got to get to work on that. But I mean, I asked you this question last time, but your answer might be different. If you could change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing you would like to see changed?
Um, Equal pay for all the divisions, men and women.
hmm I've said too, like if you're a pro in this sport, you should not have to have a day job. Like this should be just like your thing. Like it's ridiculous how your time management has to be if you want to be one of the best in this sport because yeah, it's just you're doing three things. And what
I would
advice?
say the second thing, sorry, I'm going to cut you off,
No
is
problem.
more mainstream of our sport. Our sport being broadcast, on ESPN or something of that of that line. That would be my second thing.
Yeah, they used to do that. Now they just have cornhole, which is just so dumb. It's like really that's more important than that takes more hard work than it's like I agree with you 1000% on that. And it's just yeah. I don't know why they aren't doing it. They would probably get better ratings than they would with cornhole, but that's just up to the decision makers at ESPN. God knows what they are doing. So I just do not understand that myself. But what advice do you have for people when it comes to time management? Because we didn't discuss this last time, but I mean, that's the one thing that I think detracts people from living a more healthy and fit lifestyle is that stupid excuse of, oh, I just don't have the time to do it. I don't really. What advice do you have for people? Because I bet you still hear that a lot.
Yeah, I think that's just the lamest excuse I've ever heard of. I think we all have the same 24 hours. It's how you use it. And as cliche as that is, it's very, very true. I think you need to be efficient with your time. And that's why I'm successful. I'm very efficient. I don't waste time. I don't lollygally. I don't, if I need to be somewhere, I'm on time. I make sure I have enough time to get there. Multitasking, and I'm not talking about like doing 500 things at once. I'm talking about I ice my knees, I cook my breakfast, and will be putting dishes away at the same time. So it's more about managing your time. It's not about having more time. And then I think if you want something bad enough, you figure out how to fit it in your schedule. Um, but I'm not someone who wastes time. Like I'm very efficient.
And lastly, I mean, this is a sport of such incremental gains where it's just you're not going to see those changes overnight. You're not going to really see that drastic of a change year in and year out. I mean, you'll see changes for sure, but like no one's going to just come in, like 20 or 30 pounds heavier, just 1 year after competing. I mean, it's just so minimal gains for a period of time. How do you deal with that mentally? Because a lot of people, that's one of the other things that turns them off of just even getting in shape is that like it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's going to take months upon months of just getting into a groove before you finally see something. But how do you deal with the fact that like I can train my butt off and no matter how hard I work, like I'm not going to change that much over a period of even weeks or months that drastically?
Well, I think it's finding what's changing. So it's having different parameter, um, different ways to measure, whether it's your clothes, pictures, your strength, how you feel. I think everyone's always so hyper focused on the weight or a certain amount of belly fat. Is that you have to find other measurements. I always look back at pictures and videos and place them side by side and can see how far I've come. I pay attention to how much stronger I am, the way my clothes fit, how I feel, what my energy's like. Is my heart rate up as high as it was last time I was on this treadmill? I think those things and just knowing it's a long game as opposed to a short game and finding other ways to measure your success and your progress.
I mean, we talked about the changes that have already happened in the sport of fitness, and where would you, in your guesstimate, really see the sport being 5 years from now as opposed to what it was 5 years ago? Because, like we said before, the changes are drastic, but you yourself, where do you think the changes are leading to?
Uh, I'd say harder skills, more creative routines. That's really where the fitness division seems to be going. Um, and then with the physiques, I think it's not so much you can just come in and win on your routine. You've got to have an up to par physique as well.
Yeah. Seen that as well because I actually did do a dive like 2 nights ago on just like some of the past champions and just went through some photos and yeah, it does look like you have to get a lot more harder now and you have to look a little bit leaner too as well. But yep, and honestly, like you said, the way you're going, hey, the karma's on is we're free to win your next show. So hopefully,
Thank you.
I'd say don't even do that show before the Olympia then because you don't want to waste your first place on that show then if
That's
it's at
right.
the Olympia. So
I think the plan right now is just
yeah,
Olympia.
so just do the Olympia. But yeah, honestly, I mean and I just that is the tightest division I think out of all of them when it comes to compares because like you have Missy, you have Ariel, and you have Kate from the one from the UK that was fourth at the Arnold. I mean, all of them could win really at any given day. All four of you could win at any given day. So it's really just who shows up. So that's the one division where I think like when it happens, it's the most interesting just because there's everyone's so close together. But
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, Jaclyn, thank you so much for coming back on and sharing your journey with us and giving us an update. And I look forward to talking to you again when you've hopefully won the Olympia, and we can talk about your victory there. And yeah, everyone go and give her a follow. I'll leave a link to her Instagram page down below. And buyer beware. Like I said before, you will get inspired to get in off that couch and stop eating all those Twinkies. But again, Jaclyn, I cannot thank you enough for coming back on.
Thank you so much for having me, Ryan. Always a pleasure to speak with you.
I appreciate that. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.